course. Yeah.
And speaking of which, maybe we should bring the first guest here up on stage.
Yeah, let's have Atle Fägersten up here for a quick chat with him.
Hello.
Welcome, Atle.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good.
That's nice. And you are situated here in Skövde, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you are the co-founder and producer for Palindrome Studios, I want to
Interactive.
say? Interactive, sorry, yeah.
Co-founder, producer, studio manager.
Yeah. For Palindrome.
Man of many hats.
Yeah. As it tends to be when you have a smaller-ish studio. How many people are you in your studio?
We're 15 people right now.
Right.
We started with 5 people in 2015 and kind of grown organically from there.
Yeah, steady growth.
Yeah.
And what kind of games do you mainly produce at Palindrome?
We're focused on strategy games.
Yeah.
That's always been our motto from day one, to become the best strategy game developer in Sweden and eventually the world. And I think that's one of the things that's helped us as a studio to grow and have a clear view of where we want to be.
Yeah.
It's always been what's informed every decision we've made and every game that we're producing. It's about becoming better and better at making strategy games.
Yeah, that's pretty lofty goals.
Yeah.
And why isn't your name a palindrome? I'm a bit disappointed.
My personal name or a company name?
Both.
Both. Yeah. Well, I'll have to ask my parents about the first one, and I think whoever decided to call a palindrome and not actually make it a palindrome, he messed up.
I actually saw a Swedish show on TV a few years back with a father and his son, which were huge palindrome fans. Not your company, unfortunately. So they only spoke in palindromes, which has haunted me ever since. So that's cool. Yeah, but more about you. What's your background and how did you get interested to games in the first place?
I think as most people who turn into game developers, start as a gamer, just playing games, and I studied music during high school, but after that I kind of had to take some time and figure all right, what do I want to do? And I think PC Gamer published one of their magazines right then, and I had just details about all the gaming educations in Sweden. I figured, all right, you can actually do this, you can study this and become a game developer. So that's when I decided to move here to Skövde and studied at the Högskolan and studied animation actually.
Okay.
And then, during that last semester, a couple of us or 5 of us got together and decided to start Palindrome Interactive.
Yeah. So you were a few fellow enthusiasts when it comes to strategy games, I guess.
Yeah, we had all worked together during the Game Project 2, and then throughout the summer and throughout the autumn, we felt that the team wasn't really organized anymore. We were 15 of us, and everyone wanted to do different things. So 5 of us within that big group decided, all right, we want similar goals and we want to make similar games. So let's splinter off and do our own thing.
Yeah. What's your inspirations then? What's your personal first favorite game? Can you remember what?
First favorite game? I think Warcraft 3 is one of my first favorite games, both for the single-player story and the really big world building that game did, and also all the multiplayer modes and the strategy elements of that.
Yeah. So a formative experience for your entire career, I guess then.
Yeah, in a sense.
Yeah. So there was a remake released to Warcraft 3, which wasn't amazingly received. What did you make of that?
I haven't actually played it.
Right. That says something.
Yeah. I think I hoped that it could be what everyone hoped that it would be.
More ambitious, maybe, or.
Yeah, or more ambitious, or at least in a sense, a even quality. It's something I've heard, that it's kind of it has ups and downs. Some areas are well made and recreated, and other areas are maybe not so much. But I think Warcraft 3 is such a game that the art style is unique in a way that it doesn't really grow old or age in a similar way that games have tried to be super realistic back in the early 2000s haven't been able to keep up. But it was also always stylized enough that it still looks good, in my opinion.
But when you feel that you have accomplished what you want with Palindrome, maybe you could head over to Blizzard and do another remake of Warcraft.
Show me how it's done. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Remake.
So you said that you read the PC Gamer magazine to first spark your idea of becoming a developer.
Yeah.
Has it always been a straight path from when you first came here and started to study?
Yeah, I think so. During the study, it was pretty much do the coursework, get through it. And I think it was only towards the end of the final year I realized, oh,
This is something I'm going to work with.
yeah, or I need to step it up and do something
Right.
more to actually get into working in the industry. And
Yeah.
then it was kind of deciding between jumping in solo and trying to put together a portfolio and all that, or
Yeah.
start a studio on our own.
Yeah. And what's the biggest challenges being, as you said, like a manager for the studio and have a few different roles at Palindrome? What's the main challenge?
Well, I think just starting as a small studio, you notice that, all right, we're 5 people, we think we've covered all the bases, but you'll soon realize that no, 5 people does not make a complete studio. So you kind of over time pick up all these things that you need to do. Like in the beginning, it was also some, all right, well, economics, who's going to handle paying the bills and keeping track of all that. So I think over time, I've kind of developed into this role and adopting all these roles. So it hasn't been that of a direct challenge to kind of come incremented over time.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, because you studied art, right?
Yeah, animation.
But that's not actually what you're working with. Could you tell us a little bit more about that process? Like,
Yeah,
what's
no,
been
so
like for you?
I started as a dedicated animator, but as I mentioned, we realized that, all right, well, there's so much more to be done making a big game, and we tried to really make a maybe too big of a game as our first game, as I think most developers shoot for the moon and maybe don't reach it. So we discovered that, all right, would require some audio design as well and audio implementation. All right, I can do that as well, because animation wasn't really full time then in the studio, and we need some more design and some more tech. So over time, I think we realized that everyone needs to do a little bit more, and animation was one of those things that I guess had the most downtime.
Right. So you had to pick up other things to do, or?
Yeah, and I was still interested in just the general process of making games, so it wasn't really I can't follow my dream of being a super animator. I was interested in the whole process of making games. I think that's how I've developed into also the producer role, where I have my fingers in all the processes and I have an understanding of what everyone is doing to make the complete game, not just the art side or the animation side.
Mm.
Yeah, considering that, how do you balance micromanagement with giving the individual at the company the freedom to express themselves within their field, like to not be too laid back and not be too micromanaging either?
I think there comes a time when you need to do both or either. It's a balancing act. I think we're at Palindrome, we believe a lot in the individual's responsibility to manage their own tasks and make sure that they get done on time, and with that comes the freedom for artistic expression and trying out different things. And as long as you communicate with your team and continue to have a dialogue about how things are progressing, I think you can find that balance of when you need to put your foot down and say this needs to get done now, and when you can say, all right, well, you're exploring something interesting here, keep exploring that part and then balance that somewhere else.
Right. And how's the work environment for you? Is it regimented, or is it like more free-spirited, or like how is your working hours, and is it like 9 to 5, or do you have a big flexibility within your?
We have quite solid working hours.
Yep.
We've experimented a little bit with that throughout our development as a studio.
Yep.
But I think now with COVID, we have a lot of people working from home and some working in the office. So we felt that it's become more and more important to have clear starting of the days. Right, this time we have our startup meeting, and then at the end of the day we have our ending meeting, and then it's not really a flexibility around that.
Right. So. What challenges have you met with this whole pandemic situation? Like producing something that is supposed to be like there's lots of pieces, and then you need to assemble them.
Yeah, I think there hasn't been that many challenges actually.
Right.
It's been surprisingly easy to have people working, some on site and some off site. I think we've been sitting on Discord all the time, and everyone can share their screen whenever, and always voice chatting. So you don't have that much of an issue. I guess meetings are a little bit more awkward with people accidentally talking over each other and some pauses, but overall it's worked quite well.
Do you think as an industry this situation we are in now will change how the industry works and reasons, like with questions regarding, as I said, like working hours or like working from home.
Yeah, I think definitely us as a studio have definitely reconsidered working from home in those situations. We were always quite adamant that people were going to be in the office because we felt that this is the best way for people to communicate. But having now had people out of office, we haven't really felt that people are working worse or communicating worse in any way. So I think we're definitely evaluating our principles around this. I think a lot of companies are as well.
Yeah.
And I also think that us in the gaming industry had kind of a head start, because I think a lot of us are gamers who after work we go home and we jump on Discord and we talk to our friends anyway, and like just
we're native in the environments to
and we're just communicating online anyway, so it wasn't really that big of a jump for anyone.
You actually published your latest game during this pandemic this summer in August, I think it was.
Yeah, Immortal Realms Vampire Wars.
Yeah, how was that to have a launch in a global pandemic?
We worked with a publisher on that game, Calypso Media, so they did most of the distribution, but we did feel that while our productivity weren't maybe hit that much by the COVID, definitely over on Sony and Microsoft, their testing capabilities for certification and that went way down, so we had some issues getting the game actually done in time with that.
But from your end, it was basically business as usual.
Yeah.
Right. And tell us a bit more about the game, because I saw some gameplay and trailers preparing for this, and I think it was easy to get inspired by the art. It looks really cool, the art. Could you tell us about what the idea was behind the game to start with?
Yeah, so it's a turn-based strategy game setting a dark vampire setting with some card game elements and empire management and all that. So it started as an idea of taking some of the total war aspects of Overworld with a turn-based combat. And some other inspirations from Heroes Might and Magic and the more hero-based old school games. Yeah.
And how long has your arc been, like from your idea and the concept art and stuff, and to where we are now?
It's been in development for a really long time, actually. It's been on and off for a couple of periods, and as I mentioned, we've grown the team during this time. We started actually in August 2016. So, and then there were 5 of us, and then we, I guess, worked on it for at least like 6 months before we recruited any more people. So we've grown during that time, and we've had some other projects that we've been working on as well.
Yeah, so 4 years in the making at least. Yeah. And how has the reception been for the game?
It's been a bit mixed, unfortunately. We have a lot of fans that like it a lot, and we have some other fans that are requesting some features that they feel would benefit a lot. It's quite a difficult game. Yeah. So a lot of people are having problems with that and maybe feel that an easy mode would be required, which is something that we're maybe looking into.
Okay, yeah. No promises, though.
No promises, no.
Sounds like. And before releasing in August, what was your earlier releases, and what was your experience leading up to this release?
We haven't actually released any other game. We released a mobile game very early in our stage, working with King and their default engine. Yeah. But other than that, we've been more working in our business strategy is always to find publishers and pitch games early to them and find funding that way. So while we haven't released any games, we have other projects in the making that we've talked with publishers with, but nothing that's been picked up yet.
But now when you have an actual community and the game out there, how do you work to better the game and patches and stuff like that? How is that process compared to actually developing the game from up to release?
Yeah, no, it's quite different. You go from just thinking and questioning yourself, right, is this the right decision and what would people think about this feature? And then you get a huge amount of feedback and influx of other people's opinion about, all right, how do people actually feel about this feature? And you can start evaluating a lot about your way of working and your way of doing things, and if you did the right thing, or if it's hindsight's over 2020, as you say.
And I work a lot with hate speech on the internet and stuff, combating hate speech. How has that part been for you? Are people like decent towards you when they are feedbacking, or is it a lot of toxic stuff around that? Or?
No, I said most people are. Some people, I guess, let their emotions get the better of them.
Yeah.
But I think you have to distance yourself from that a little bit, and in a way, you can maybe appreciate that they're this passionate about your game and feel that, all right, they really like this, or they really wanted this to be something more than it is, and you can take that with you in a sense to maybe motivate you. But I think it's important not let that stuff get to you.
Yeah, and for you personally, what has been the coolest thing about actually becoming a game developer and shipping a game, and what's the could you point to one thing or one moment that would be the high point for you this far?
I think if we were going to point just to one moment, it was when we got the hard copies shipped to us of the game we're releasing on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4 and Switch, and we got some hard printed copies of the game, and that just made it all so much more real than just you've worked on this for so much time, and it's just been digitally sending files and uploading to Steam, and then you actually get the hard work, like something actually that you can hold that is a result of all your labor. Yeah,
was there a time for partying, or how did you?
Well, with the COVID, we haven't actually been able to have a release party yet. We've got a lot of things to celebrate, and we're kind of like banking up throughout this year. So we're gonna have
be a big party.
Yeah, a really big party.
Whenever we have the opportunity to, we're gonna probably for quite a big party. Yeah, definitely.
But you're part of the Embracer Group as well, right?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so our first investor back in 2016 was actually Goodbye Kansas Game Invest, as they were called now Amplifier Game Invest. So they were purchased by Embracer, I think, last year, and they were happy to honor the agreement that we had, which was a minority investment from them at first. But this August, we actually got fully acquired by Amplifier, so then indirectly through Embracer, just because we wanted to build Palindrome to be the best that it could be, and that of course requires money and time, and if we can get money, then we can shorten the amount of time that's going to require. So that was our agreement with Embracer. They're going to help us evolve Palindrome to an even higher level, making more and better games.
Yeah, and speaking of the future, what are your future plans for the studio, and what's next, if you can speak about it?
I can speak a little about it. We're in a cooperation with Coffee Stain right now, working on our next game. We've got plans, of course, like expanding the studio, maybe making more than one game at a time, and exploring more pipelines and more parts of the strategy game genre, more than just turn-based. But
so Vampire Goats, you're saying?
Maybe a Goat Simulator turn-based strategy game. Who knows?
Yeah. What would you have liked to know when you started the studio? Are there some points where you felt like, oh, yeah, right, if we did it this way instead, it would save a lot of anxiety and money and stuff like that? If you could like point out some tips for people starting a studio right now.
I think it's work hard and have a bit of luck.
Yeah.
And I think the only way you can manipulate luck is to try many things and roll the dice as much as possible. I think we got lucky, we worked hard, but a lot of the things that we did, we met the right people, and I think you meet the right people by going to events like, unfortunately not, you can't meet people in person on Sweden Game Conference now, but hang out in the Discord, talking to the people that are there, and just asking for the opportunities that you feel that you need, and because you won't get those if you don't ask. So we went to Gamescom and Games Connection in Paris so many times just to talk with publisher and pitch our game, and eventually Calypso bought our game, and eventually we met the Amplify Game Invest, and they invested in us. So just putting yourself out there and making sure that you're not just in your bubble developing your game, hoping that once this is done, we'll be able to make money, because probably you won't be able to survive that long as a studio. And
does that inform how you design your game as well? I mean, standing out is really hard as an indie game developer. Did that influence how you your concept and also like developing the game?
Yeah, definitely. It affects the game. We also tended to focus as much as possible on the studio and trying to sell a long-term strategy. Nice. We didn't want to just sell, right, this is the game we're working on now, and after that we have no idea what we're going to do. We were going to say, all right, this is the game we're working on now. In the future, we're going to work on games similar to that, like this, and this, and just have bare-bone pitches and ideas of where we want to be in 5 years, because that helps both investors and publishers see, all right, there's a long-term strategy here. So if we sign one game with them, we can sign the next game with them, knowing that it's going to be a similar audience and an easier sell, and we can see that this studio is going to progress to something and not just do one thing and then do a completely different thing.
Yeah, and as a genre, how do you see the strategy genre right now? It's been ups and downs for the genre. It's been like almost at its deathbed sometimes, and now it's revitalized a bit, I feel like. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think there was a huge peak of turn-based strategy games some years ago, and that's kind of died off a little bit in the interest, and I think so that's one of the reasons why we're trying to split our focus within the entire strategy games genre, and I think there's always an interest in those games. The consumers are quite picky. You need to develop to a certain level. You can't really sell those half-assed games as well.
The polish needs to be...
Yeah, the expectations is higher than a lot of other, I think, games.
Do you think the community is more demanding than a few other genre communities?
Yeah, I think so. But together with that comes a community that is quite willing to spend money. Yeah. I mean, you can look at the Paradox games and the amount of DLC that they release, and those still get sold. I think if you want to buy all of the European Universalis games, it's like 10,000 euro. And it's like a lot of people have bought all those DLCs because the game is that great to them.
Yeah, but you don't have any live elements or stuff like that in your game, or do you have some things you could, like events or in-game spending, or? No,
it's a single player and premium only.
So is that something you have decided on as a studio going forward, or is it like you're flexible with that, or is it like a policy decision that comes with making, as you said, like premium strategy games?
I think it's quite connected to the market. It's always been our idea of making premium games. I think what we're looking into more is maybe user-generated content to try and get some push around that, and then you can kind of explore, well, how do you want to resell that content or promote makers to be able to sell their content in the game? But it's not something that we're developing right now, but it's of course ideas that we're always looking into.
And right now, what are some games that you play that inspire you and maybe comes into what's next for Palindrome in the coming years?
I don't know how much it comes next into what we're doing next, maybe, but I've been playing Hades, which is quite interesting in the way they tell story and put the player into connection with the character. Yeah. So that's been quite interesting. And other than that, I was super impressed with Last of Us 2, just the way that they're actually making a game that's taking so much advantage of storytelling that in a way that only games can do. Yeah, and I have to say Hades is like I'm playing it that obsessively right now. Yeah. What are the elements besides how they tell the story, which is unique in a run-based game? But what is some more details with Hades that you are like impressed with and maybe inspired by? Well, I'm quite a big fan of the roguelikes and roguelites genre, so I'm always interested in seeing how different games tackle that end state and how you get players to try and then fail and try again and keep that progression going and not just giving up after a couple of failed attempts. Yeah, and as you said, your game is a bit punishing, and maybe that's been on your mind a little also. Bit. Yeah. So we are about to round this chat off right now, but a few quick ones before we do. All right. Do you prefer pirates or vampires? Ooh, vampires.
You have to say that, right? You're making a vampire game.
I'm locked in.
Of course. Super Mario or Zelda?
Zelda.
Because
I'm more into the adventure part of that. Yeah. And the story.
Yeah. Mustard or ketchup?
Ketchup.
Unity or Unreal?
Ooh, both.
Right. That's good.
Depending on the game.
That's a diplomatic and good answer. Yeah. Owl or flamingo, it says on here. I don't know why.
Flamingos. We have a couple of flamingos in our office, actually.
Maybe that's why then. Okay. Yeah. You have no owls then?
No owls yet. Okay. We'll have to balance that, I guess.
Yeah. All right, Atle. Really nice to speak to you. Yeah. And